Cool. So it wouldn't be an episode of Get Better if there weren't mountains of technical difficulties.
I mean, we're, to the credit of Get Better, the title of the show, we are getting better. At this rate, we are starting just 3 minutes behind schedule instead of the track we usually have, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40.
It is somewhere. It is. I don't think we've ever actually started within the 10 minutes of 8:30.
So, to Get Better, we are like sailing through this process.
Speaking of which, I got a board. I acquired a board.
Ooh.
And so I've got some cables that I'm ordering tonight, and so we'll be able to run all of our audio through a mixer, and I'll be able to do a little fancy EQ on our voices.
Nice. So,
and also, I won't have to sync up the audio, which is the main reason I got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it just makes it seem like it's like, yeah, now this is a professional operation. Like I went out, I found a sound recorder, I found a mixer because of this reason. But as is most things in our lives, the sound recorder, the mixer fell into your lap.
That's true. Yeah, it was being gotten rid of. And then I said, hey, if you're going to throw it in a dumpster, why don't you give it to me? And they're like, okay, cool. And then I got it. The story's not important of who these people were or how this happened, but I acquired a mixer, and and I know how to use it.
Yeah, saying that sentence makes it seem like it's a crime.
It was, okay, I'll be clear. It was not a crime. Mm-hmm. It is some people I work with, and they were getting rid of a mixer. And so they were throwing away a bunch of old stuff, and I saw in the big pile of stuff they were getting rid of a sound mixer. I did not see a pop filter, which would be great for me, as you can tell. But I did find a sound mixer, and I said, well, hey, I could use that. Are you going to just throw it in a dumpster? And they said, yeah, it's going in the trash. Mm-hmm. Or we're going to give it to Best Buy or Staples or whatever. We're going to recycle. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't know if it was exactly going in a dumpster, but it was going away. And so I said, well, can it go away to my house? And they said, yeah, sure. So next week, hopefully, if Amazon is kind, we will have a bunch of cords.
Ooh, good.
So that your audio will just pump through. It's going to go computer out into one channel and then go my mic out into another channel, and then those two are going to mix. And I can do EQ on it, which is really cool. And I've never done that, as anyone can tell from listening to the show. I've never done any EQ, but I'll be able to do it on knobs instead of settings, and I just feel like that's a lot more intuitive. So I'll be able to do some EQing, and then the important part, those two will mix together, and they can go out from the board into my computer as one file, and I don't have to sync them up, which is the most important part.
Yeah.
So
well, on my end,
getting better.
I just got a really nice pair of noise canceling headphones, only because the other pair of bad noise canceling headphones that I had were destroyed by my roommate's dog. So
oh no! Yeah. Wait, so they were bad? A.
Well, they were
B. They're destroyed.
Yeah, they're very bad now. They were passably bad, and now they are unpassably bad because they are in several pieces. Well, now they're in a trash can, but before they were in several pieces.
Now they're in sort of an art project in a garbage can.
Yeah. Which is odd because the dog, aforementioned dog, Maygene, she is not allowed in my room. Not only is she not allowed in my room, she's not even allowed downstairs, which is where my room is. So why I think one day she was like, not only am I going to go downstairs where I'm not allowed, I'm going to push open this guy's door and then wreck the place. So, but all she really got was she destroyed my headphones and then a roll of film that I had.
No.
Yeah. A roll of film I had taken pictures of while I was in DC. So not a super great turnaround, but I mean, whatever.
Well, okay, so that's I mean, so it was like pictures, not like a roll of like 8mm or like film. Wait, what do you mean? What kind of film? Is it nice?
Yeah, it was a roll of 35mm film.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay, sorry. Well, what I was trying to say, it wasn't film like moving pictures. It was photographs, but it was still nice.
I mean, it was that I bought it, but I think that I'm in a position now where I can always say that the pictures were better because now no one will see them. So I can just be like, oh man, there's some really good ones there. Really a shame. And so people will be like, oh man, what a loss. But I know the pictures I took on that roll, and I'm like, that's probably for the best.
It's a weird way to live your life.
I mean, I took some.
I'm happy for you, I guess.
Yeah, no.
I'm happy
I
for
mean,
you that-
I'm hoping it's still salvageable. It's just like there's a big bite mark in it. And I don't like, I didn't puncture anything, and I don't know enough about like the roll that's inside of it. I'm just going to hand it to somebody and just go, can you make this film or make this pictures? And
I think so.
I mean, yeah, probably. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a net loss. So, cause I'm like the film, no light got to it, and
Right.
like you can just,
The negative would still be there.
yeah,
It would
and you can
have,
just
like a big hole
get
in
the
it.
film out of it. So I'm thinking that that's going to happen. I don't think this is the first time that someone has gone up to this professional film developer and said, "Hey, this got squished. Is that okay?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, fine. It's fine. Yeah, I'm a professional. I'm paid to do this."
Have you ever? Oh, are you gonna go to that spot on Bardstown Road?
That spot on Bardstown Road.
The camera place.
Oh yeah. There's actually two camera places. One where
The one with the mural.
yes, that's actually where I got my camera.
That's the spot on Bardstown Road.
Yeah, that's-
I'm not trying to be secretive. I don't know.
Yeah, that place is called Chuck's. And Chuck's is
Chuck's.
great because it genuinely feels like a passion project. And by that, I mean, this person had absolutely no intention of making a business. You walk in and there is just, I'm just trash talking Chuck. It's a great place to go. Like,
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an establishment of the town.
yeah, it is amazing. They have tons of great stuff. Like one time I went in there and there was like a probably $4,000 or $5,000 camera just like sitting on like a chair, and next to that camera was the cat Mo, just like on this camera, and we were like, that's a very nice camera, and there's just a cat on it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And like Chuck works there. Like it's Chuck.
Yeah.
It's the guy.
Yeah, it's Chuck, and he knows everything about film and pictures and like photography and everything. And the one time I went there where I got the camera that I use now, I walked in and he was like working on something, and we could see that he was working on this really big, it just looked like a tube, like a giant tube that got bigger, like a lens. And we were like, "Oh, Chuck, what's that?" And he was like, "Oh, someone came by with this. It is a lens you can put on your camera to take pictures of planets." And I was like, tight. And then I was like, does it work with any film? Does it work with any like camera? And he was like, oh yeah, you just like set it on. He like just like turned around and then like grabbed a camera and like clocked it in. They're like, boop. And then he was like, yeah, now this can take pictures of planets. And he was, the way he had positioned it was like, yeah, just another day at the office. Like, whatever, I'll probably sell this thing for like $800. Who cares? And I was like, yeah, you're right, Chuck. That's a pretty good deal.
I was gonna say I would think it would be worth a lot more than $800.
Well,
but
it was just like, it just looked like a gigantic lens that was like probably from the 1980s or 90s. Like no one was going to use this thing. It would like, there's better versions of it now. And it was probably just some like clunky thing they used to take pictures of planets like a long time ago. I think it's more of like an antique piece than it is an effective lens. And that's why he was working on it to make it better. Anyway, it's a really cool place. If you're ever in the 502 area, then definitely check out Chuck's, and then go get your, there's actually another camera place on Bardstown Road. It's Murphy's, and Murphy's is where you get like your film and also like real time like digital cameras, or like rent out digital cameras.
If you're going out Bardstown Road like towards downtown, at one point you'll come around, it's all one road, but like you'll come around a bend, and there's a mural of like a guy taking a photograph, but then also I think there are cameras in the mural, but the part that you will notice is a painting of a guy hanging out a window like waving or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a painting of Chuck. That building is Chuck's. So like, you'll see it as like, whoa, it's a painting of a guy like just like, hey, out the window. It's like, if you're looking for a camera place, that's the one. Just stop there. I was not jealous of Chuck's because like I'm not into cameras, but jealous in a way because my brother is really into photography, and like our basement, sort of like we always called it the utility closet. I guess you'd call it like a laundry room, but it was like had our water heater and washer and dryer, and then like some storage where we would keep like wrapping paper and decorations and stuff, right? Like you can imagine this room. It also had a compound bow because my dad had a bow and arrow. It had like a compound bow that was hanging on our water heater to this day for like years and decades now. he has his compound bow that I always remember. Walking into the utility closet and there's a big U of L basketball poster on there, and then you'd open the door and there's a washer and dryer, and then there's a compound bow hanging between the washer and the water heater that I think I used like one time. Like, it's mostly decoration in the most unused room in the house, or the most like hidden room in the house.
Mm.
But when I was in my teens, my brother got really into photography, and so he turned our utility closet into a dark room because it was just like this little interior room of the house. And so he set up a whole, like, obviously like the red lights and like all the solutions and all the stuff that you would need to make a dark room. And he would go to Chuck's all the time on Bardstown Road. And of course, my spot on Bardstown Road was Wild and Woolly Video, which, I'd get $1.25 in quarters and then get on the TARC bus and go down to Bardstown Road. And that's just like what I did as a kid. Like, I would just get on the bus, walk around Bardstown Road for a whole Saturday, and you just do that for hours. And Wild and Woolly Video was like this really cool off-color, like, video rental store that had like lots of cool indie movies and lots of just like genre films and like just really crazy stuff. And it was just this really hip spot right downtown, or not right downtown, right on Bardstown Road, right by all the Irish bars across from Quills. I'm talking about. Did you ever remember? No, you weren't there for this place.
I am not aware of this place at all. Like I'm trying to piece together Wild and Woolly Video, and I'm like, I don't know where this is.
Well, that's part of the story. So Bardstown Road, you're going, and then it turns, and there's that sort of 3-way, 4-way, actually I guess it's like a 5-way intersection right before the coffee shop.
Yep.
Quills, yeah, of course, right. So it's right before Quills and Molly Malone's and all that kind of stuff, like the Irish bar area. There's this like,
all three of them, yeah.
Yeah, well, and then you go down to Phoenix Hill, and there's more bars, but yeah. Like, that's like the Irish bar section is all right there. Well, right before this is this turn. And I think now it's like a Batteries Plus. It's like something, it's like a big bummer. It's like one of the really like hurts you in the heart. It's not the biggest one, and I'll get to the biggest one, but it really hurts you in the heart to see what used to be this. And I get it. Like, a video rental place is not going to stick around. I get it. And a camera place is going to stay around a lot longer than a video rental place. I get that. But it was such a bummer because it's just like, oh, that was like my spot. Like, my brother still got Chuck's and this cool camera shop, and like that's still there of like, oh yeah, I grew up, I would always go down to here, da-da-da, camera equipment, darkroom, da-da-da. And I'm like, see that battery store? It used to be a video place. The worst one, of course, is there was this really, really cool record shop called Ear Ecstasy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, right. Of course you heard of it.
Yeah,
it's like, it was like the Highlands.
That was before my time, and I still know about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was the coolest place. It was a 2-level record store. And if you've ever seen the movie High Fidelity, it was like exactly like that. It's this really cool record shop. Lots of posters and lots of just a space that you walked in and it felt like the Highlands. Like, it felt like this is a weird alternative, like somewhat punk rock place. So now it's a Qdoba, and that's a bummer.
That truly is like the biggest gut punch in like Louisville history.
That's really hard for me because every time I see it, and my lovely wife points this out to me because I do say this every time. I'm like, oh man, that used to be a cool record shop, and she's like, honey, I know. And I'm like, but that used to be a really cool record shop, and I used to seriously just like get in the couches and find 5 quarters and get on a bus and go and hang out at these places, and now it's like, that's a battery store.
that's a Qdoba.
That's a Qdoba. Oh, you mean Qdoba? No, I mean Ear Ecstasy. It's a Qdoba.
Well, there's another one that I think is like, and that, man, again, welcome to Zach and Sam talk about regional stuff, the podcast.
Whatever. I'm talking about generally the idea of neighborhoods and how they change, right? Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Everybody has a neighbor. If you live in any city in the country, you have a cool record shop and a cool video rental place that used to be there and is now a battery store in a Qdoba. Like, you understand what I'm talking about. I'm not expecting you to actually go, there's the mural, it's Chuck's. I don't expect you to do that. I'm talking vaguely, use your imagination, team. Anyway.
Yeah.
There's another record store.
There's not another record store, but there was this one. It was the place that I was most notified about before I lived here, which is there's this one restaurant called Lynn's Paradise Cafe.
Oh my gosh, what a tragedy.
And
oh
boy, was this place. I went there one time, and I don't think I had enough time to really let it sink in how much of a Louisville staple it was. But it's just a restaurant with food that one would argue was a bit overpriced and just crazy stuff on the wall, but not like Zaxby's crazy stuff on the wall, not like Montana Grill crazy stuff on the wall, like in this like some generic restaurant. It was just like there was horses everywhere, and like you had all of these. When I was there, gave you a bucket of like little dinosaur figurines that you could play with, and it was this wild, like, throw caution to the wind type restaurant. And it was closed down, and it was vacant for forever. And now they just opened a new restaurant there, and it is a Tennessee barbecue restaurant.
That hurts.
Based in Tennessee, and I was like, tight.
We had a similar thing happen in Nashville just recently in this neighborhood called Hillsborough Village. Well, kind of too. Hillsborough Village is like a microcosm of the Highlands, because the Highlands is like not big, but it's long. Like the section of Bardstown Road that is cool is like several miles long, and if you cut that down to like a quarter mile, that would be. There's just like Hillsborough Village is this one strip of shops that are very cool but impossible to get to because traffic, and it's right by Vanderbilt, and it's just like you can't navigate it, and so it's kind of a wasteland. But it had a bunch of cool shops, and they just recently lost 2 independent bookstores, Bookman and Bookwoman. I don't actually think they were 2 different stores now that I say that out loud. Bookman and Book.
What a coincidence!
But the way it was one bookstore that had a door connecting it, but it was like 2 bookstores. One called Bookman, one called Bookwoman. Obviously, these are the same store, but then there was like a door connecting the 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it just recently went away, and I think is now like a altered state or something. It's like a clothing store.
Yeah.
But then, and I don't know. I'm sure they went away because it wasn't like a curated bookstore. You know, like if you go to like a Barnes and Noble and it's like, oh, there are lots of sections where I can, you know what I mean? Like Barnes and Noble. I love bookstores. Like I'm not gonna. But like Barnes & Noble is more fun to shop in. Like it is. Yeah. And I'm not talking about because it's full of Funko Pops. I'd love if they got rid of the Funko Pops.
Mm-hmm.
But
really, you didn't like Funko Pops?
No.
Dude,
no, I actually don't.
We have a mutual friend. I don't know if you know this, but she is like the biggest Funko Pop advocate in the whole wide world, and it is this baffling to me that these things are still like, it just seems like they're running out of ideas, and they're just like every pop culture thing ever, and then they just like get little like black eyes on them and make them in a square, and it's like that'll be $35 or however much a Funko Pop is. I don't care.
I have no idea. I mostly, I mean, Funko Pops are in the same genre of like action figures, where it's like, well, unless I'm going to start a YouTube channel where my background is 800 Funko Pops,
yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with these exactly, because they're not toys. They're just display objects. Like, you can't play with them, right? They have a little stand underneath them.
Yeah.
Right?
They're not. They're not movable. You can't even like move their little hands around. It's just like a display thing, like in the same vein as you would be having an action figure, but you'd be keeping it in the box.
Yeah, it'd be an action figure in the box. Exactly. It's exactly the thing where it's like, do I like Funko Pops? Like, well, I don't plan on decorating my house with action figures, so no. And that's no shade to anybody that does. Like, it's your deal, whatever, man. Like, go for it. But no, that's not me. And I get it. Like, I get why bookstores have to do that, because like they're trying to outrun Amazon, and I get it. And so like they just have to move units, and they have to make some money. But I don't know. Anyway, all that to say, Barnes and Noble is like a more fun place to shop because it's more curated. Like there's more end caps with books. There's more sections. Like there's more delineation. They get rid of old books. They say like, here are the best books in that genre, or like, here are the most popular books in that genre. And no, you're not gonna, search through there in some sort of like 1990s romantic comedy fantasy where you like go into some little reading nook and find some book that's going to change your life. But like, look, if you know anything about books, a lot of books are garbage. Like a lot of books are garbage. A lot of books are garbage, dude. They are. They're bad. They're just not good books. Like, they're not good. It's honestly like, there are a lot of books, man. Some of them are bad. And there's so many, like, you go into a used bookstore and you're like, oh, all the dreams of all the blah. And then you look and you're like, all these books suck. Like, suck. These books are not good. Like, they sold 8 copies for a reason because they're not good. And where you go to like and that honestly, like, what I'm describing, all the good and the bad, is what Bookman, Bookwoman was. It was shelves and shelves and shelves of used books, but they were not organized in any discernible way. But there were all these little, like, secret little nooks in it. I mean, it was a cool building. It was not great, I don't think. I only went in there once and said, this isn't my bag. So, if you, if that's, you live and die by Bookman, Bookwoman, okay. But I went in there once and thought, like, this is not an effective way for me to pick a book to buy. Because I don't know what any of these are. Like, I have no idea to understand if any of this is quality. And I'm not going to invest in a 400-page book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to buy a book and get 15 pages in and go, well, this is garbage. I guess I have garbage on my shelf now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've never, ever been the type to, like, find a book and it's like, this is my book. Like, this is my, like, in the same way you'd find, like, a song. Because you can really invest yourself in, like, 2 minutes or 3 minutes of a song and say, like, oh, right, this is, like, a hidden gem and this is, like, something that's special to me. But if it's, like, like a Dune ripoff and it's 500 pages, you're like, dude, come on, like, this is not great. So yeah,
that's what I'm saying. You don't want to get 250 pages into a 500-page book and be like, oh, this is derivative and dumb. Like, this is stupid. And so anyway, Bookman, Bookwoman was that kind of place, and it went away. The actual place I was talking about, which was a gem and a wonderful place, was this place called Pangea, and it was just a knick-knack shop. Like, have you ever been shopping with a girl and you go to, like, Francesca's, for example? Has this ever happened to you?
I cannot relate to one part of that story.
Okay. Well, if you ever find yourself shopping with a girl and you end up in, like, a girl store, there's a beautiful section of girl stores, which is the boyfriend table. And I love the boyfriend table because I'm a boyfriend. And so I spend a lot of time at the boyfriend table. And the boyfriend table is just knickknacks. It's just garbage. Nobody buys it. I don't know. I mean, I know why it's there, but it's not there for sale. It's like little, like, bachelorette books and, like, this book that's like cats and boys, and it's a picture of a cat and then on one page and a picture of a male model on the opposite page. Or like shot glasses and little funny hats and, like, whatever. Just garbage. Now you might be thinking, a boyfriend would never buy any of that. A boyfriend's not supposed to buy any of that. What boyfriends are supposed to do is look at all that stuff while their girlfriend tries on clothes. Because it's always right next to the dressing room. Like, there's the dressing room, and then there's just knickknacks that you are just like, well, I'm not going to look at any of these clothes. And, like, she's trying on clothes, so, like, I got to do something. And I'm not just going to stand here and stare at these girls in this store. So they have, you know what I mean? Like, it's a weird position to just be like, what do I do in this store? Like, I don't want any of this. It's all dresses. But I'm here. What do I do? And this is something, I mean, this happens, 100 times a day, every day at one of these stores. Because girls come in the store with their boyfriend, and the boyfriend doesn't have anything to do. So, boyfriend table. Pangea was like a really nice boyfriend table. The whole store. The whole store is just knickknacks. Like, yes, there were some clothes some places, but mostly it was just tables full of cool stuff. Like candles with Frida Kahlo on it, or lots of Frida Kahlo stuff. Or like candles with John Lennon on it, and like books by Thoreau, and like all these little books, and all this stuff about drinking and flasks and watches, and
So, but all
everywhere.
these things were like it was like curated in the way, like not going into an antique store where it's like all this is mostly junk and just
No.
like have fun, dude. So it was like curated nonsense.
Yeah. It was just a bunch of stuff. Like there would be a little table at the front that I think was the boyfriend table of the boyfriend table store. Because it was all like kind of more gendered male. Like all of it was kind of unisex, but there was one table that had like a pocket, like a letter opener, but the letter opener is a fist at the top.
Yes.
And then there's like a compass.
Man, you got to be going through a lot of letters to have a letter opener.
Well, you've got to be a certain kind of person to
That's
get a letter
true.
opener. And I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
bad, but then there'd be like a pocket watch, but the face of the watch is a compass. And
Yes.
then there'd be like On Camping by Thoreau, which is a bunch of excerpts from Thoreau where he talks about camping. But then like all over the place, like there's just all this kind of stuff and like little little ornaments and little calendars and like funny socks and all this stuff. And it was a gem of a store. I mean, just a wonderful store. Whenever I was in Hillsborough Village, I would go to Pangea and just mull around. And like it was stuff that I would buy, and we've bought plenty of presents there. It's like a great store. But like Lynn's Paradise Cafe, unfortunately, it was one of those things where it was like a gem in the community. And then the owner was just like, well, I want to retire. So it's not a store anymore. And it's like, no, but you're a part of a community and you matter to us. And it's like, nah, but I want to retire.
And there was no step down. There was no other person that could take that over.
No.
Man.
I assume most of the time that's what happens is that someone else comes in and they're like, so I'm appointing like my best manager, or like I'm appointing my daughter, and now they will run it. But it was just like, no, I'm retiring. Like Lynn, it was basically like there was something about they didn't have money to break tips. So all the like people that worked there had to bring in $100 bill or $100
wow.
in 20s and 10s, like in change, like $100 in change every shift. They had to bring that in so that they could make change. And then one of the girls refused and she got fired, and then she sued, and Lynn was like, you know what? Never mind. And closed the store. She didn't like lose the lawsuit. She was just like, you know what? I don't care about this. And she just moved away. And I was like, but you're an institution. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to deal with any of this. So goodbye.
Yeah. I knew about that, but I didn't. I knew there was that drama going down, but I didn't feel that I was connected enough to it to speak at it.
Oh, I was bummed out when it happened. It was made me sad. But yeah, man, there's a lot of that. You know, it's hard when a town. I mean, it would be like if Spencer's closed in Bowling Green.
Yeah.
It's just
but
like,
in a more likely turn of events, it's going to just change the name of Bowling Green to Spencer's.
Yeah, they have expended twice since we went to college.
There was this picture they did. There's the whole 10-year challenge thing, and they posted a picture of what it looked like back in 2009, and it was the Spencer's a coffee house in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
They figured it out, dude. They know. They're smart.
Yeah.
They're smart listeners. They'll figure it out.
So that it was night and day different. Like it was just this like rinky-dink size of a walk-in closet coffee shop, and now it has like it's that whole building and then the building next to it.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
is just wild.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I was going to say something about the 10-year. Oh, never mind. No, who cares about the 10-year challenge? I think it's a little weird that people are doing it for 2019 and not 2020, but...
Yeah, right. It seems very... Because I don't remember this happening with previous years. It doesn't seem like 2019, it just feels like such a nothing year. Like, I feel like I'm just living 2016 on repeat at this point.
Well, and it's not like we're going to like, oh God, I hope we're not living. But it's not like we're going to roll over. It's not like it's going to be like a rolling average, right? Where next year you also do like, oh, and now I'm going to do what 2020 and 2010. It's like No, this was just the year we decided to all look back 10 years.
Yeah. But that's 2020 is going to be the 20-year challenge. It's like, this is me as a toddler.
Right. Like, hey, this is me. I'm 7 years old. Pretty cool, huh?
Pretty cool. You've seen a 7-year-old before. You've seen them all.
I was super into cartoons. Spoiler, I'm back into cartoons.
Yeah.
So, like...
back then, I knew everything about Rugrats. Nothing has changed.
Right. Now I know everything about Gravity Falls. Oops.
And Rugrats, just in case it comes up.
I don't know anything about Rugrats.
Really? Oh, okay. Well,
I mean, I watched Rugrats or whatever, but like... No.
Yeah, well, I don't know. This it doesn't have to be the talk about cartoons one, but there's like this really weird era of animation that exists kind of in the Rugrats era where people were kind of closing the book on Rocko's Modern Life and Ren and Stimpy and other like very bizarre, like in a way, animation to make you feel uncomfortable sort of thing. And it was like, let's try to get back into realism just a little bit. But Rugrats is like one of those shows that bridges the gap between what would become like As Told by Ginger, or even to some degree, like Fairly Odd Parents, something like that, where it's more rooted, like the animation seems more like polished and less just like uncomfortably like distorted. So Rugrats is this show that really exists in this era of like trying to rein it back into something that makes sense because of all the years of like Chicken and Cow and all those other shows I mentioned.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like, see, I think what I imprinted on was... sorry, shut down the podcast. You can buy on Amazon the Rugrats Guide to Adulting. When did this come out?
I do not know.
I'm just saying Rugrats is an old cartoon, and the phrase adulting has got to be like 2 years old. Like, it's not like new, but it's also not like from 1993. Anyway, what I was going to say is I was trying to remind myself what Rugrats did a thing that is really interesting when you watch cartoons. I think The Simpsons is the most famous for this, of course, but like the original it's like while they were making the show, they were also learning how to draw, because the original Rugrats look bad.
Yeah, of course.
Tommy Pickles looks great, but
no,
here's
that's
the thing.
And that's what I'm getting into is like you're bridging this gap of animation, because like when you look at season season 1 Rugrats, it is just like bizarre. Everything is distorted and somehow like fuzzy, and then you get into the later ones where it's pushing itself into what is going to be how animation looks for the next decade or so, and it is much more polished. It is much more like I can see where the lines end. The characters have bodies that make sense at least. But for those first like 2 years, it is just wild. Like throw caution to the wind, wild.
No, I see exactly what you're saying, bridging the gap. Yeah. Because right now I'm looking at a picture of Chucky, and like his hair is just like really low to his head, but then all the wisps are really long and really skinny, which is ugly. Like it looks ugly. Like it looks gross and unsettling. And then you click to a later picture and it's a lot bigger shapes. Like he still has big curly red hair, but like the part that's the mound of the hair is much more, and then the wisps are less, and it's just like and like the shapes are all bigger, and Tommy's head gets a lot rounder and more, and not like this weird trapezoid shape, which is much more appealing to look at.
And I think that can be said with most animated shows, especially in their first year, because like they have as much funding as the place will give them. They don't know if it's going to be hit or not. They're not going to give them a whole bunch of money. So like if you even look at like especially Simpsons season 1 and 2 and even into 3 are just like nonsense garbage. And like I'm thinking back to like King of the Hill, the animation is weird. Like the mouths don't always sync up with what they're saying. Same thing with like Bob's Burgers and like Fairly Odd Parents, like Danny Phantom, like all of it is just very much up until you know that you have a creator you can trust and you have a budget you can give them. There's not a lot of bounds they'll give to you, which is weird because like sometimes you see shows, and this is probably back in the 90s where this is more prominent when there's still cell animation going on, because you see like Gravity Falls, and Disney had no idea, apart from working on Fishtails, like they had no idea who the creator was. They hadn't worked with him in like big project like this, but like those 40 episodes, those two shows are like all the animation syncs up, and there's not a lot of diversion from what it originally looked like. And the same thing with like regular show or Adventure Time. Like there's not a lot of change in the way the animation looks.
Right. You said something about fishtails?
Yeah, Fishtail. Or wait, is that what it's called?
No, it is. I'm finding fish hooks.
Fish hooks. Yeah.
I still don't know what this is, but I typed in.
I think I told you about fish hooks, right?
No, you told me about Flapjack, which I know about Flapjack.
Well, fish hooks was a that's a Disney show they had, and Flapjack is a very similar kind of vein, but a lot of very prominent people worked on fish hooks as well. And that's how Disney knew about Alex Hurwitz, and also Justin Roiland, who worked on the show as well.
This is very like Gumball, like mixed, which I don't like. I don't like the mixed media,
and that is another thing that kids especially will look back on in the future and just be like, man, or like in the same way that like when we look back on like kind of having a vague memory of Rocko's Modern Life and a vague memory of Ren and Stimpy, it was like, and like even into a kind of a harkening back to it with Courage the Cowardly Dog, like this like really weird and distorted and just like making you uncomfortable animation. Right. And I think fish hooks into like Gumball is kind of a very similar, like this weird hook or this weird trend that they had where they were doing mixed media into their animation, which I don't know where that came from, and I'm super glad it's gone.
Yeah, I mean the thing about mixed media that I don't prefer, even just like texture, like real life texture on vector or whatever, like cartoony drawing, is the thing that I don't like about it is that it's the same thing with gradients. You can always tell a Canadian animation because they have gradients, and I don't know why that's a thing in Canada, but like if there is a gradient on someone's like face or hair, like you are looking at Canadian animation. I don't know why they do it, but it's gross. Yeah. And like the problem for me is that it's neither 3D or 2D, right? Because or if you always see that texture, it's a show called Chowder.
Yeah, Chowder.
It's like the purple kid and he's dressed like a wizard.
Yep.
Yeah, Chowder. His textures don't move. So the outline is there, but if he's wearing like a checkered shirt, he will move around and the checkers will stay in the same place. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like
kind of.
It doesn't move like a pattern on your shirt. Or say that like right at your collarbone there's a line, like touch the two parts of your collarbone. Mm-hmm. Say right there's a one of the checkers, right? It goes like all the way down.
Okay.
Right. If you moved an inch to the right, the checker would move an inch to like the left.
Yeah.
Like the pattern is stationary and you are moving in front of it. So like as you move back and forth, the pattern does not stay on your collarbone. Like it sort of stays in the same place behind you and you move past it. Anyway, it's gross. I don't like it. And the reason I don't like it, well, is because it looks neither 2D or 3D, right? It does what I think is the worst thing, which is it calls attention to the fact that it is made. Like I was tutoring a guy in animation a couple weeks ago. And like the big thing I kept telling him was like, what you need to focus on is making it read. Like it needs to read. You need to, when you're doing like a walk, like you do not want your viewer thinking, oh, these are good drawings. What you want them thinking is, where is that person going? That's what you want.
Yeah.
Or like, why are they feeling that way? You want them to not think about the fact that it is animated and think about that character as a character and wonder what they're doing. And when you have the mixed media, like it's not 2D, it's all 2D in the same. Right.
Like you're noticing the animation.
You notice it, and it's not 3D, especially with like the gradients, because nothing in 3D shades that way. You don't have a constant straight gradient that never changes. You have gradients when there's like lighting, and you see that in like Gravity Falls or whatever, any show that does all 2D, like you see like gradients. That is a thing. A lot of flat colors, but you have lighting effects. And in 3D, of course, you have that because the light source bends around the body and stuff. But this mixed media stuff, it just calls attention to the fact that it is made, and a lot of people don't notice and don't care. But for me, I of course notice, and then I would assume there's a subconscious noticing.
Yeah, and it's kind of like one of those things you talk about when people reference old 1960s cartoons, like when you kind of have a general idea of what's going to happen in the scene because of the way it's animated. You know what I'm talking about? Like when, like say for example, you're watching Scooby-Doo, and you can see something animated differently, and that's because it is something that exists on the background image that they're like moving it around because it's cell animation.
Like a different color, yeah.
It's a different thing. So as you're watching that scene unfold, the entire time you're like, there's something in that drawer. I know that because the way it looks. Like they're going to use that at some point, and like you care less about how, like you notice it, whether or not it's like, because even when you're a kid, because I that's probably because that was a product of the time and it was just them doing the best they could. But I know that like subconsciously it does take you out of the story because you're like, whatever they're talking about, I'm not experiencing these. And for whatever it's worth, like even if it's Scooby-Doo, you want to kind of have the audience to unfold the mystery with them. But there's a way of it being like, I can't even pay attention to what you're saying because I know that whatever you're looking for, the thing you're talking about right now is in that drawer because it's done differently.
Right. And
am I even on the same level as you?
Yeah, of course. No, I mean, no, because I think we've talked about that before. Like there's an episode of Scooby. I talk about this all the time. So I don't know if I've talked about it on the show, but I talked about it like in the last week. Like I remember there's specifically this episode of a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Oh, yeah.
Retrospectives have explained to me it was not a good show. I didn't notice it as a bad show, but I do remember this one moment, and this is when I first noticed that thing, which is it's the one where he thinks he's turning into a werewolf, and there's a full moon out, and so they notice it's a full moon, and the whole gang is like, oh no, Scooby's going to turn into a werewolf, right? And in the shot, Scooby is sitting there and he looks up at the window and there's a full moon in the sky. Mm-hmm. And then they stop talking about it, but we're still in the same shot and the moon goes away. Like they were done with it, so it stopped being in the sky. And it was like, guys, this is on television. You don't, like, nobody know, like, I just peeked out the microphone because I was so frustrated. Like, nobody noticed? Like, nobody saw that and was like, oh, hey, you know the focal point of the scene? That a lot of people are, not only the brightest point in the composition, but the thing that we are directed, every part of this composition is directing us to look at this one point in space, which is the moon.
Yeah.
How did you not look at it? Because I'm looking at the moon as I'm supposed to. Like, Scooby is looking at it. All the lines are pointing towards it. It's the brightest part. Like, that's it. That's what you're supposed to look at. They're talking about it. And then it blinks away. And it's like, how were you not looking at that when you made it?
Yeah. It's like, it'll be fun.
Yeah, like, it's in the shot. Just keep it in the shot. I don't even understand why it was on a different layer. Like, just make it part of the back. Now, maybe, again, I don't remember. Maybe it was that some clouds parted and then the moon was revealed. But I do specifically remember the moon blinks away. And it's like, hey, guys, what happened? And, like, there were lots of things like that in A Pup Named Scooby-Doo where, yeah, there'd be a bunch of bushes and they're all one color green. But then there's another, like, patch of bushes and it's a lighter color green and you're like, okay. And then it starts rustling and someone comes out of the bushes and you're like, yeah, kind of spoiled it for me. And I don't know how you didn't see. That was always my thing. It's like, how do you not see this?
I love two things. One, that we're talking about A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, but two, the fact that you said, I haven't said this on the podcast, but I talk about this all the time, that you have just some dealt with beef with A Pup Named Scooby-Doo.
I mean, I wouldn't say I have a beef with A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, but what I would say is that I talk about animation a lot, and this is a moment specifically that I remember as being just particularly like, okay, wait a minute, guys. Like, hey, let's do better. I'm trying to find this scene to make sure that I'm not absolutely insane.
I'm trying to find, like, some YouTube channel that has posted this because even they knew that
Oh, a where
And
do
to what- and to-
the where do of Do Manor? Yes. I
So
remember
what
this.
end are you gonna find this? We can't. It's an audio medium. You can't like show them like, guys, this is what I'm talking about.
No. Well, I could tell you where it is first of all. But
Okay.
number two, I could also make sure I didn't make this up. Okay, I will figure this out. I think it's the episode season 3. Season 3. There were 3 seasons of Pup Named Scooby Doo. The Where Do of Do Manor. I'm gonna do some more research of this. But anyway, yeah, no, I mean I talk about animation a lot. I like animation. I make animation. It is something I enjoy and it's something I think about pretty often. And something that doesn't really bother me, but I do think it's dumb, is when people will use the excuse, and this would be a time for that, where they were like, well, who cares? It's for kids. And it's like,
yeah.
and it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, kids aren't gonna boycott your show,
Mm-hmm.
but kids do notice. There's a reason
Yeah.
Pixar is more popular than
Yeah,
DreamWorks.
and this, it's what I kind of thought. Okay, so this goes back to because especially with the thing with kids, and I think that's going to change maybe, but with when you're revisiting the life of Mr. Rogers, who showed up every day and cared, genuinely cared about what. Hold on, just a second.
Okay, something's happening. I'll just read you titles.
Sorry.
I thought I was gonna have to go for a while. I was
No.
gonna read you titles of episodes of
Sorry,
Scooby-Doo.
it's raining outside, and I thought that I was just sitting on the creakiest chair of all time, and I was like, man, no matter how still I am, this chair is just creaking out of control. So anyway, when you look at the life of Mr. Rogers, who showed up and he cared, and he brought kids to the conversation, no matter how crazy it was. You see episodes where he talks about death and divorce and even assassination when it came to Robert F. Kennedy, and that's just so wild to me that he would care that much to bring them there. And I think that was wild to me at first because so much of children's media is just dumbing down everything for the purpose of whatever, who cares, and which goes back to my ongoing beef against Illumination Studios for their movie
Sure.
The Grinch, because it just very much felt like they had made a Despicable Me offshoot and then just reworked that script and just threw the Grinch costume on it, and it was whatever, who cares, because it's only kids gonna be watching this. And I thought that was just super disrespectful of the medium, as well as how smart kids are and how much they notice, and or how important the media is to them,
Right, it's one of those things where they do notice that it's different, and if you make garbage, you'll get away with it, but why?
Yeah.
Why would you? Well, why? Why would you do that?
Or I think
who cares?
when you're making a good thing, it's something that has all of the drama and all of the bones and story elements of an adult show, but without all the adult themes. For the most part, all those things are kind of dealing with one show I always point back to in terms of very adult themes in the way it approaches very serious stuff is Avatar: The Last Airbender, and just
Yeah.
and it's a cartoon, but every action has consequences, and there is the stakes are high the entire time. Yes, they do jokes, and they're living in the camp together, and they're trying to become friends in a very childish way. But when things go down, it is very much a boiled down. If you had just thrown a different show or a mentality on top of it, it would be very much some HBO show or some Showtime show that has a lot more liberty when it comes to what they can and can't show you on TV. But they don't need to use those things. They just in the oddest way possible of with this kid that can control all 4 elements. They really do make everything feel very weighty. Even up to the very end, every decision is very weighty.
Well, right, and I haven't seen the whole show, but that is the thing where, you see this with musicians sometimes, where it's oh, I'm gonna be adult now, and I was well, you're kind of just gonna be teenage, you know what I mean? You're just gonna kind of talk about butts and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you're not really being like an adult. And so there's kind of this HBO effect where like every HBO show has to have lots of sex in it because their whole bit is like you can't show sex anywhere else, so you can watch TV shows with sex in them on HBO. Like, that's part of the appeal. But it does give this weird idea that like, oh, there's kids shows and then there's shows for adults, and that just means nudity. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to mean that. Like, it could, you know what I mean? Like, there can be shows that have adult theme. Even that phrase, adult themes, you're like, oh, you mean like sex and murder and rape. And it's like, oh no, like also like responsibilities are hard. Like, that is also an adult theme.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. And again, and also it doesn't have, I don't think it has to be. Like, sometimes it's just fun to watch something that like, I don't want to be talked to about why sharing is good because that's dumb.
Yeah.
But like, sometimes I do just want to watch something that's funny and like nice. And cartoons are cool. I don't know, man.
Cartoons are cool. Man, I worked so hard just finding out as much as I could about Fire Festival, and now we're not even going to have time to talk about it.
Oh, what are you talking about? We got 30 minutes, man. Oh my God.
No, we do not.
Oh, we've been recording for 51 minutes.
Just talking about cartoons and regional things.
I would not have gone so much into a pup named Scooby-Doo if I knew that. Oh, we got it. Okay, we'll just talk for a little bit. We got it.
No. I mean, come on. I'm not gonna like lower all of my Fire Festival thoughts to the next like couple of minutes.
All right, fine. Can you give me like some bullet? So you watched both documentaries?
Of course, I did.
This is homework for the.
Yeah. I watched both documentaries. There's one on Hulu and one on Netflix, and although they're about the same thing, the tone of them is very different. Well, I mean, like, kind of different. I just feel like one of them was the Hulu one, which is called Fire Fraud, which, by the way, is not a great title. I was thinking about that constantly. The entire time I was watching it, I was like, this is not, like, you could have done so much better with this title. Because, like, fire's in the name. And, like, the puns, there's so many of them. And you wrote Fire Fraud? Come on. And that was beef I had with that one. But I felt that one did a good job of being very visually inventive, as well as it felt like, how do I describe this? It felt like a Magnolia documentary. Magnolia is the people that did Bowling for Columbine, as well as Bigger, Faster, Stronger. And although they're dealing with very serious issues, they'll splice in like a lot of very fun visuals, or like in the case of this one, like like both of them. One thing I recognize is they'll do little montages, and the montages have like clips of like 1910s cartoons or like 1920s, like kind of that kind of era, and also just like very fast cuts of things that are happening, like whether through social media or whatever. And it kind of reminded me of that. And it took something very serious, and like Magnolia documentaries, they gave it to you in a very serious format, but they lightened the mood enough to where it was funny, but in like a scary, sad way. Like, I don't know if you've seen, like, for those of you that have seen Bowling for Columbine, the movie's funny. It's a really funny movie, and like it's very silly in this like way, but like as it gets into the deeper parts of it, it's like, oh no, this is very sad. But it kind of like reels you in to teaching you something by not making it like dread all the time. And so it reminded me kind of that. Whereas the Netflix one, I felt more was like the serious, like kind of vibe to it, where it was less of a social commentary than the Fire Fraud one, but more of like an unpacking of the events with a ton of footage that I do not know how they had so much like very behind the scenes footage. And I was like, why are you guys filming all this? You know, it's a crime.
Well, the one that I watched was the Netflix one, and it actually got what I liked, which was it focused a lot more on like the logistics, like the whole like look at these dumb kids for spending money part is not interesting to me. I just don't feel that way. Like if you have money to spend it, I don't care if you spend your money. I'd prefer you like gave it to charity, but if you don't, like, live your life. But,
not my money. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I didn't really care about that, but I did want to know, like, how? Like, how did they go from promising these beautiful cabanas to having these, like, hurricane relief tents on a construction site? Like, how did this happen?
Oh yeah,
And it was all logistics, which is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, that's.
So I really liked it.
I don't know if you saw the Hulu one, but everything they're doing so much social commentary that you kind of get lost in the weeds. Because like one thing when I was watching it, I was like, but how did it get that bad that fast? So it's just like
Right.
they really like gloss over the last few weeks and days before Fire Festival and then hit you again really hard with like the outcry of it. But the entire time I was like, wait, like how, like how did that, whatever his name, Billy, meet up with meet up with the people that are getting the tents and being like, yeah, this is good, we'll take these. And it's like, how did that happen? Like,
Well,
because
there's a YouTube video. Go ahead.
oh, it moved all the way past it really fast. But I think the Netflix one very much was like really sinking you into how like all those decisions were made and all that kind of stuff, which is really fascinating because that is one thing that I kind of thought was like, it has to go really, really well for a very long time for it to go bad that fast, you know?
Right.
Like you have to have a ton of power to make things go off the rails like that. Like, and make so many people want to spend so much money on a lie. Like you have to be doing really well for yourself. And I think they focused more on like how that happened.
Yeah, they focused more on like the cult of personality of this guy. Anyway, we can talk about it next time. I only watched the Netflix one, but it doesn't sound like I want to watch the Hulu one.
Oh, dude, you got to. It's so.
Yeah, maybe.
It is so. It's very charming. It's very much like all the editing is really fun, and it's all like spliced together in such a way that makes it seem like it's in the same way like those documentaries would be. It's like, this is really, really funny, and it's like at one point it's like this isn't funny anymore, and then it gets very, very intense, and then it like kind of lightens it up towards the end again. But it has like with the intention of giving you what do we take away from this? Like what do we learn from this experience?
Right.
And it has a really interesting take on like. Because that one's more about what it means to be a con man and like how we live in a world of con men now.
This is Hulu?
Yeah, this is the Hulu one.
Oh, well, no, that would be interesting to me. I would like that.
It's because I think it's focused more on like we like it's
Anyway, we can do this next week. This is next week.
okay.
What I will say though is that while we've been doing this episode, and probably why I got so distracted and lost 30 minutes, is I have been skimming through season 4, episode 26, The Where-Do of Do Manor.
Oh my gosh.
At 15 minutes and 30, I was about to say I need to formally apologize to a pup named Scooby-Doo because I made this whole scene up. This was not real. But then, literally, it's half the frame, and there's clouds and a moon, and it just blinks away in the middle of the scene.
Yes.
There's still several seconds that it's on screen, and they're talking, and it just is gone. And I remember this. And I was going to say this is one of those, like, Oprah memories where you're like, yeah, I thought that was true when I wrote it in my book, but turns out it never happened, and I believed that it really happened. No, this happened. Pup named Scooby-Doo. It's a bad show. And I
apologize and I recant my apology.
Yes, first I would like to formally apologize to a pup named Scooby-Doo for besmirching their reputation, and second I would formally like to revoke my apology to a pup named Scooby-Doo for ruining their reputation. Their reputation is bad for a reason. It's bad.
Mm-hmm.
All
right. This episode brought to you by a pup named Scooby-Doo haters.
Yep. See you bye forever.
See you bye forever.